Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to cilinixfxcapital and welcome to this new video on the markets. We're going to do a full update right now on the fundamentals. We'll talk about Bitcoin, we'll talk about XRP briefly, we'll talk about Ethereum briefly, and then we'll talk about some altcoins that I think are interesting. So let's get right into it, but we have to start off with the fundamentals. There's quite a lot going on. Ultimately, look, what I always say is that it's very difficult for everybody to follow all the news, and I also don't think it really matters. What you want to watch at least is how equities are doing. And equities are still doing fine, right? So, I mean, there's no reason to suspect at this point of time that the S&P 500 is going to crash. So ultimately, that's good. Volatility index is also relatively low. It could be lower, but it's relatively low. So that's good. Gold is still rallying, but that's okay as well. It's not necessarily like gold rallying can be a bad thing, but in this case, it's not a bad thing. Now, there's a couple of things, though, that I think you need to watch, and I think I'll keep you updated on, at least. There's a potential government shutdown in the United States. Now, usually this gets, it's all right? They'll find a way to actually manage. But the uncertainty around that could actually cause some bearish pressure. At this point of time, I'm not afraid of that, since the volatility index is still very low. We have a Jerome Powell speech today, and we just got some PMI data from the United States. It was worse than expected. So that's at least initially, I would say, that's good news for the markets, right? Because that's economic slowdown. So then the probability of 2 rate cuts for the rest of 2025 becomes higher. At this point of time, it's still the same as what it was this morning. So we'll have to see whether that actually changes. But for now, I'd say that's good news. And then we also got some other news about the SEC to create new rules to allow crypto companies to launch products in the US without having to comply with previous regulatory requirements, calling it an innovation exemption. This is all good news, all right? So fundamentally, there's no reason, I would say, at this point of time to be afraid, to be cautious. Although I must say, I mean, the government shutdown story, that could become more bearish, but at this point of time, it isn't. But ultimately, we need to see something in the technicals as well. And the US session has just started about 21 minutes ago. The volume at this point of time is still extremely low. So at this point of time, not much is happening, but volume will increase. All right. And there's 2 things that can happen, right? The price action so far, if we look at Bitcoin and, quick spoiler alert, what happens with Bitcoin is going to dictate what happens with Ethereum and XRP. So I don't think it matters much to talk about Ethereum and XRP right now. When we're talking about those, the only relevant thing that I think you need to know is that XRP is relatively strong and Ethereum is relatively weak. But no, I mean, with Bitcoin, we're very much waiting either for a breakout above 113.5. So that's an area to keep your eyes on, or a breakdown below 112,000. If Bitcoin falls below 112,000 right now, after getting this bottom confirmation there over the course of the last 2 days, that would be very, very bad news. All right, and that is a possibility, especially with the possibility of some more uncertainty in the United States. So be aware of that. For now, I still think, especially with the news we just got, but also with the general expected price action after something like what happens on Monday, I still think it's going to be most likely that we'll reclaim 113.5, and that we'll be able to rally back into 115 and 114.7, which is our next price target. All right, so therefore, quickly taking a look at XRP and Ethereum here. Therefore, I think XRP is going to be able to reclaim 2.85 and rally into 2.95 on the short term. And I think Ethereum, like I said, Ethereum is quite a bit weaker. But I think Ethereum is going to be able to reclaim 4,250. But this is not something I would buy into. If anything, I would buy Bitcoin if we break above 113.4. Anything else, at least out of Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, I would avoid. Now, there are some altcoins, though, that I think look more interesting. All right. First of all, AFX. AFX has been incredibly strong over the course of the last couple of weeks. It's still very strong. Now, I'm not telling you right now, buy, but ultimately, I do think this is heading for $40 and $42. And this is one of the best coins to keep your eyes on. Another one that actually looks relatively good is NEAR. NEAR is still struggling with that 7-day rolling VWAP. It would be great if we are able to reclaim that, but I do think it's most likely that we will be able to reclaim that. as long as the fundamentals play ball, right? So as long as we don't see massive escalation politically in the United States. I think that's going to be all right. And the Binance coin ASTER, as expected this morning, if you watch my video, is also still doing great. We're most likely going to form with ASTER, most likely going to form some sort of a cup right here. But then I do think we can also rally up higher, which I know sounds a little bit crazy because we have already rallied so much. But that's what I said this morning, and everything that has happened after that has basically happened as I predicted it. All right, so it looks good to go higher. I still think Linea is going to break out at some point of time, so definitely keep your eyes on that. And then outside of that, I mean, what more do we have? I think that's it. I think those are the best places to focus on right now. We've seen some momentum here and there on other places, but you cannot focus on anything at once, right? So in summary, we just got some good news. There is some news that could escalate and could turn into bad news. Ultimately, we're waiting for Bitcoin to reclaim 113.5 or a breakdown below 112,000 when volume comes in over the course of this US session. If you want to be updated on that, consider joining our Telegram, consider joining our Discord, or follow me on X, where I usually post some updates as well. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching. Take care and bye.